Gotcha.
Hello everyone, and welcome to my guide for the top 10 things you're doing wrong versus Safijiiva, the new Siege Elder Dragon. While Safijiiva is not as difficult as the Extreme Behemoth was when the Extreme Behemoth launched, he's still fairly complicated, and I see a lot of people making mistakes when they fight Safijiiva, so this guide is, in particularly, is for you to help you kind of clear up some things you're doing wrong and to pretty much improve your gameplay, get your fights done faster, get them done more consistently, and fail them fewer times. Let's go ahead and start the list. Mistake number 1 on the list is probably the most important. I'm starting here to make sure the most number of people who clicked on this video actually hear this tip. Stop bringing Weakness Exploit. Weakness Exploit is a skill that only works when the monster has good hit zone values. Safijiiva does not have good hit zone values. Basically, when you attack him, it's not going to activate. So when his head breaks and when his arms breaks, sure, it activates at that point, but those body parts are really resistant to breaking. They really don't break until the very end of the fight. And this means if you want to have high affinity, which you do for most weapons that deal explosive damage, it probably doesn't matter as much, but most damage is done with the combination of high affinity and high, crit boost or elemental crit. So you gotta have the high affinity, and so you want to focus on building it differently. Here are some of the options. You've got Critical Eye. Maximum Might comes back. So Maximum Might was nerfed, and that's why people mostly stopped using it. But now you're probably going to consider it, because it's going to end up being a more powerful option than Weakness Exploit for a number of weapons. Latent Power. We have Latent Power Secret with the new Stygian Zinogre armor set and the old Zinogre armor set. You also have Affinity augmentations you can put on your weapon, and you can even consider the new Safijiiva armor set, which gives you that set bonus skill, which just gives you passive affinity, or static affinity I should say, at the cost, of course, of damaging you. Mistake number 2. You're underestimating the importance of Felyne Safeguard and Felyne Insurance. These are food skills you can eat for. Insurance is a daily skill. It means that it appears randomly, so hopefully one of the 4 of you have Felyne Insurance. Safeguard is not random. You can always eat for this. You usually have to spend a voucher, and I highly recommend that you do. Basically, between the 2 skills, Safeguard and Insurance, you're getting 2 extra lives, and this is going to guarantee that you don't lose your match before the end, so you do get to kill them, and then you do get to carve them. So people skipping Felyne Safeguard and Felyne Insurance, shame on you, because that little bit of extra damage from like attack up large is really not, in my opinion, it's not as useful as having Safeguard and Insurance, unless you're playing with really skilled players, which you often aren't, especially if you're playing with, essentially randoms. The other thing I wanted to mention here is you can actually check people's builds to see if they've eaten for Felyne Safeguard and Felyne Insurance, because obviously only one person needs to eat Safeguard. So you can go check their build, inspect their build, and if they've eaten, or if they've already gotten Safeguard, feel free to eat whatever you want to eat. You can go for Moxie, you can go for damage, whatever it is you want to do. The next mistake you're going to make is, in stage 1 of the fight, you are not getting the boulder drops for a free 4,000 damage on Safijiiva. So there's 2 falling boulders, they each deal 4,000 damage. Don't worry about trapping him in the decayed ground or whatever that is. I mean, it's nice, but I would go for both of the boulder drops, because not only do the boulder drops give you 4,000 damage, it knocks him over anyways, so you get the knockdown on him as well. So everyone needs to focus on pushing him toward that boulder rather than spreading out around him and pushing him in all different directions. Push him in one direction toward the boulder and then go for the other boulder when he repositions. I'd also be curious to see somebody put him to sleep under one of the boulders, because then you can wake him up by dropping the boulder on him, and presumably you would get the wake up damage multiplier. I haven't done this myself. I presume it still works though, because we used to do this all the time in Elder's Recess versus the Behemoth. Mistake number 4. Speaking of putting Safijiiva to sleep, the next mistake that you're probably making is you're using all of your good crowd controls in stage 1 and 2 of the fight, when you should be saving all those crowd controls for stage 3 of the fight. What am I talking about? I'm talking about mounting Safijiiva, save that for stage 3. KOing Safijiiva. A lot of people using sticky ammo. Shoot him in the booty with that sticky ammo until stage 3, then focus on his head. Paralysis, I've never tested for 2 procs of paralysis. You probably can hit that, but get the paralysis in stage 3, and then of course sleep as well. You can sleep him under the boulders, but if you're not going to do that, wait till stage 3 to put him to sleep, and keep in mind it's not really worth it to try to put him to sleep twice, because he's really resistant to the second proc of sleep, okay? Moving along, mistake number 5 is that you're attacking the wrong body part. You guys are probably starting to get familiar with the idea of hit zone values. Different parts of the monster's body are going to take more damage from different damage types: sever, blunt, and shot. There's also elemental damage types. Well, in this case, when it comes to elemental damage, you want to shoot his head, and then you want the bullets or whatever it is you're firing to go toward his legs. So, if you're using the bow, you'll probably focus the head. I've never tried the bow against him. I might recommend focusing the wings, but I'm not sure. You'd probably focus the head and then the wings when he goes down. But anyways, you're focusing on the wrong body parts with your blunt and your sever weapons as well. So with the sever weapons, you want to focus on his forearms. And then with the blunt weapons, you have a little more moving around space. You can go for his head, you can go for his hind legs, you can even go for his tail and get fairly good damage with the blunt weapons on the tail. And then of course, if you and your teammates are trying to get a tail sever, which you can, by the way, but multiple people have to focus on the tail, you can cut the tail off. So, if you must go for the tail, go for it, but be sure to bring Part Breaker, of course. Number 6, the next mistake you're probably making is that you're not dealing enough poison damage. So Safijiiva, similar to Zenjiiva, takes an enormous amount of poison damage. The poison damage against Safijiiva is actually so good that you should be considering building the set bonus skill, Poison Duration Up, which you get from the Raytheon and Pink Raytheon armor set. Go take a look at those. It's ridiculous. I'm seeing speedrunners use it. I already kind of suspected it would be optimal against them. So if you are going to run poison weapons, do consider the Poison Duration Up skill. If you're not going to run poison weapons, the other tip I have for you is you should probably be bringing the Poison Smoke Bomb so that you can contribute to the poison damage that Safijiiva is taking. Number 7, the next mistake that you're making is you're not setting off the traps in Stage 3 of the siege. So you guys know about the traps, the falling boulders in Stage 1 and the decayed floor. You can trick them into the decayed floor. In Stage 3, a lot of players don't seem to realize that you should kind of be kiting him over to the explosive traps on the floor. They have a greenish energy glowing from them, and what you want to do is just get him to walk over those, and then you attack the green energy. It explodes for 1,000 damage. It's particularly easy to do in Stage 3 because he pulls aggro onto a single player, and that player just has to lead him over. Mistake number 8. There's a lot of mantles and boosters you can consider bringing against Safijiiva. Probably Temporal Mantle, Rocksteady Mantle is probably on your list. A lot of the pros use the Glider Mantle because the Glider Mantle comes with good decoration slots. You can consider Evasion Mantle with like the bow. Well, guess what? I think one of the things you should probably all be bringing is the Affinity Booster. Unless you know your teammates are using a lot of explosive damage like sticky ammo, the Affinity Booster is going to be really helpful here because, once again, we're not really getting the best use out of Weakness Exploit, Maximum Might has been nerfed, Latent Power is not always active, so Affinity Booster is going to help your team by giving you guys a ton of affinity, especially if a few of you guys bring the Affinity Booster and trade off so that while one person has it recharging, the next person is using it. This is going to boost the damage output of your team by quite a lot. So this is something that I think more people are going to realize over time, and is something I'm recommending here in this video. The next mistake you're making, mistake number 9, is that you're not playing the tank when somebody could definitely be playing the tank. So when Safijiiva aggroes on to the player who's dealing the most damage, he's actually pretty deadly. He attacks very quickly. It's actually very similar to Extreme Behemoth. He attacks quickly, his moves deal a fair amount of damage, they can cut you down to half health, and if you don't have a healer on your team, this can really actually be quite challenging. Well, one of the things that I notice a lot of people are not taking advantage of is the fact that you can pick up some, pods, whatever it is, stone, whatever's dropped on the ground, dragon pods, pick those up, grab him by the head, and flint shot him, and he's going to be giving you his aggro if you do this. So if you're playing a shield weapon like the gun lance or the lance, even the sword and shield if you brought like guard up and maybe a little bit of guard, or you just are very good at dodging or very good at handling the aggro, when somebody else grabs the aggro because they're doing a terrific amount of damage, don't let them get interrupted. See what I'm saying? They're already doing a good job, they're already dealing a lot of damage. Take his aggro away from them and they're going to keep doing good damage, and you can just guard it, or maybe you're just better at handling it. Maybe you have your Temporal Mantle available. That's a big deal, right? And you don't know if they have their Temporal Mantle available. So go ahead and grab the aggro for yourself by flint shotting him on the head. Alright, and finally, for mistake number 10, you're not using Elderseal on Safijiiva. That's right. So when it comes to the elemental hit zones, I might have already mentioned this earlier in the list, I'm not sure if I did. When it comes to the elemental hit zones, he takes the same elemental damage from all elemental types. Except he doesn't really, does he? Because when you Elderseal him, he takes slightly more dragon damage. And Capcom themselves have mentioned when you Elderseal Safijiiva, you drain his energy faster. I've also heard that when you drain his energy, he doesn't use his ultimate attack as often, the Sapphire attack. I've heard that, but I don't have a way to confirm it. Maybe you guys can share your thoughts on that. Whatever the case is, since all the elemental types are doing the same damage, if you're using a weapon that can do dragon element and you don't intend to use poison damage, you should be using your dragon elemental weapons, including the new Stygian and Ogre dragon elemental weapons we just received. It's almost like Capcom was winking at us and saying, here's the Stygian and Ogre, dragon damage weapons. Go ahead and be using these on Safijiiva. So that's what my suspicion is with their planning behind that. And now you should be considering Elderseal. There's even decorations that will allow you to raise your Elderseal level. And there's the Dragon Mantle, but I don't think I would use that. I think, once again, I would probably use Affinity Booster and Temporal Mantle. And that's the end of my list of the 10 things you're doing wrong in the Safijiiva fight. Let me know if some of the tips in here helped you improve how you fight him. And if you have some tips that you think would help the community in fighting Safijiiva, be sure to leave them in the comment section so that we can all have a better time when we fight him. I'm going to thank you all for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.